Hello everybody, I hope you're keeping well this morning. I'm up bright and early, ahead of the tour group. I'm in Cappadocia, Turkey. It's a beautiful crisp morning in autumn. The balloons are going up actually just behind me over in Kerwin. But of course I'm here photographing architecture this morning using the Canon R5, and I just want to give you some tips and tricks on using that camera here to photograph a nice ruin, lovely light, nice architecture. There's a soft glow coming this morning, so I've got to move on quickly. Let's get my gear and get on in there.
For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is James Kerwin, and this is me. I'm an architecture and interior photographer from the UK that is now based in Istanbul. I love shooting heritage, abandoned places, relics, ruins, hidden gems and ghost towns, as well as off the beaten path locations all around the world. You can catch my content weekly, well, when life doesn't take over. So why don't you join me for the ride by subscribing, and you can also check out my website in the description below.
So this is the location. So the biggest challenge I've got here is the light's going to come up on this left-hand side here. By the time that happens, I want to be leaving to go for a coffee. So I'm actually using my Canon R5, of course, and I've got my 24mm tilt shift on the front here. The thing is that you don't need that lens necessarily. I'm using it because my wide angle is obviously being filmed on. But the focal length is decent for this kind of semi-interior exterior. It's like an interior that's been exposed from collapsed rock. So it's in shade, it's in shadow. It's going to do an amazing job. Of course, the only difference really is that we're using manual focus here on this lens. Whereas if I was using my wide angle, yeah, we could use autofocus. What I want to be doing here is giving the image depth, and in my composition, I want to be kind of getting some foreground interest, midground and background. As I'm doing that, I'm going to be talking you through it, but I'm also going to be talking you through some ideas to get this nice and sharp in the Canon R5 and the settings that I'm using as I'm doing it. But I do have to be fast because, as I said a minute ago, the light is going to be coming up here and eventually fill this with light, and it's going to look not quite as good. You've seen me just there struggling with the rock, trying to get in position, and I've got to be careful because it's a little bit unsturdy. I made sure that my tripod's nice and solid, because even though this camera is amazing at kind of capturing things at higher ISO, I want to keep that ISO nice and low, of course. I've framed it up here so that I've got a little bit of the ceiling and a little bit of the foreground, but the main focus being the wall. Now this isn't going to be the main shot. I'm actually going to go off to one side in a minute and further back. But I do like this sort of detail shot pressed in. I could even make a panoramic of this lens, top, middle and bottom, but I want to just do the one shot of the wall at the moment. Settings are nice and simple in here. We're talking about f8. So I'm going to bracket this shot. I'm going to be sitting at f8, as I said. ISO 100, 3 brackets, 1 stop apart. My middle exposure is like 1/20th of a second. And to be honest with you, that's fine. I'm focusing on the wall, and with the 2-second timer activated in this camera, nice and still, we get great results. I like the little vegetation that I've got in the bottom right hand corner of that frame. It's a really nice one. I really like the kind of features up here that's been left behind. I like the pattern of the bricks on the right hand side leading up to the kind of elevated section of the wall, and I really like the door frame as well. Simple composition, easy one. Okay, let's move on to another angle. Now for the second one, I actually spoke to my tour group yesterday and said to them about sort of framing things up, balancing out the composition. And that's kind of what I'm looking to do on this shot. Now I've got to be careful because the sun's rising over there. Of course you can see in this frame, it's coming in on the side of the camera. So I need to be careful doing that here in this one because the same thing could apply. So I've got to be moving this pretty fast, and that's why I've chosen to do this shot second rather than something a bit closer in. What I've actually done with the frame here is I'm balancing out the kind of image overall, and I'm trying to give it shape. Now there's basically a kind of upside down backwards L kind of across the top here, and there's another one in the bottom section caused by this wall and vegetation opening up to the back composition of the actual focal point, which is the actual church itself, the monastery. It looks pretty decent. I really like it. I think overall my settings are going to be fairly similar, of course. I like what I've done with the opening up of the shot. It's kind of balanced out, and I've come further back. You saw me struggling again with my tripod trying to get it in position. As for settings go, not much is going to change. It's now about a 50th of a second, so already it's getting brighter and brighter. When I'm setting up my R5, I do have in this one focus peaking on. I have of course my little green spot, so it joins together when it's in focus because it's in manual. But if you had an autofocus lens, you could just simply focus on the back wall for the first image. However, there is foreground vegetation in this shot, so we're going to be doing focus stacking method. Now the light is soft and it's glowing, these trees and the vegetation in the foreground here. And what I'm doing is I'm just doing one focus on the back wall, and then I'm doing another bracket here for the foreground, so they'll be blended together. Now whenever I do that in camera, I also then decide to take a photograph of my thumb, like so, just to remind myself in post-production in Lightroom when I'm looking through those images that they need blending together. So because I'm using the 24mm tilt shift lens, I've actually got a bit of a cheat code here that I can use in camera too, which is tilt. Now I've not talked about that before in this channel very much, and I'll do a dedicated video for that very soon. But we can just tilt the front element of the lens and get front to back focus stacking in lens. Now to do that, what I've done is I've ever so slightly, and it is very slight, tilted the lens slightly down to extend the plane of focus, and we can test that by moving the focus point to the back wall and then moving the focus point again to the foreground and just checking that it's green and all still in focus. And it is. I think I'm done here. I'll show you my composition again in camera and the result, and we'll move on to our next composition. you see me getting in position here. The first thing is I'm trying to balance out my tripod. It's an uneven ground, so I'm trying to get uneven legs to balance it out, essentially. I quite like the composition here too. Whether it needs to be further back or not, I'm not entirely sure. I'm just going to frame it up and check. Now, I've come back just less than a metre, to be honest, less than 100 centimetres. And we can get a very similar image. It's a bit more of a compressed scene. It's still nice as well. And there is like a really nice depth through it again. Foreground, middle, and that back wall. But even still, with that foreground interest, we do have to readjust our focus and get focus stacks. So whenever I'm doing a focus stack like this, I'm just checking my scene throughout. I'm just making sure that the foreground, the midground and the background has an image that's been taken that has that element in focus. So what I mean by that is I could check the top, the middle and the bottom and just capture the amount of shots that I need within my editing style to ensure that it's going to look decent. Now, there's a little bit about my framing that I don't like and I'm going to adjust, and that is I'm just lifting my tilt shift tiny fraction up. Now, not much. I like it, it's good, but I'm having to focus at the top of the image here for this one. 2-second timer, take the shot. Move the focus point for the final time, it's going to be right in the bottom corner, almost, the bottom of the frame down here. And of course it's way off. So we're going to have 3 stacks here together in post. But I like it. I like it a lot. We could even open our frame up a little bit, you know. We could even come around here a little bit more in the frame if we wanted to, get more of the rocks. Yeah. It's nice. It's nice over here, but I think it's too busy. The scene's too busy. There's too many rocks. There's a tree growing out of it, a little sort of dead tree as well, which doesn't look best. It might look good if it was green or the summer. So I'm going to say no to this image, although I do like the way the wall sits in comparison to back in that position. I'll take it and I'll pop it on the screen. But I think you'll agree, it's just a little bit busy for me. I've not spoken about depth too much on this channel before, but it's very, very important. Here I've just been swinging around, getting various compositions. You've seen some work better than others, but always think about depth in your images. Try and think about that foreground, midground and background. It's just the same in architecture as it is in any other genre. I hope you've enjoyed this one. It's quite nice. Chilled morning. Beautiful scenery around here as well, of course. I've got another video coming up, another early morning I'm doing in a couple of days' time in an outlying village of a mansion. Keep an eye out for that one, but I hope you've enjoyed this video, just to kind of guide through me shooting this morning with my Canon R5, of course using the Canon RP to film on as well. I need to go grab the coffees, take them back to the crew. We've got a busy day ahead of us here in Cappadocia, and it's going to be a good one. We're going up to the Red Valley and taking the group up there for the first time, and into Kerwin. If you're interested in checking out those tours in the future for 24 and 5, you can see the description in the link below. We've got lots of stuff coming up on the channel, of course. If you've got any comments, please do leave them below. Until next time, yeah, take care, guys. Bye-bye for now.